least 2022, unless major developments are made in vaccines and hospital capacity, according to a Harvard University study. Let's go deep on this one. Dr. Nicole Saphier, New York City physician and a Fox News contributor. Dr. Peter Hotez, professor at Baylor College of Medicine. Good to see you both. Dr. Hotez, why are we going to be social distancing for so long?
Well, I think it's really important to point out that we're not going to be social distancing that whole time. This is a study done by a colleague of mine, Mark Lipsitch, at the Harvard School of Public Health, and it's basically saying, as we ease up moving into the summer, getting back to some normal semblance of life, we're not entirely out of it because this virus may come back in seasonal waves, very much like the flu pandemic of 1918, which lasted till 1920. So there might be seasonal peaks, say in January, February of each year for the next couple of years. And that means we may have to get used to re-implementing social distancing in some parts of the country. It's not as though we're just going to have to do this constantly for the next 3 years.
It's so helpful to know that you know the person who put together that study because it caused some alarm. I mean, that does seem like a blanket statement, but what you're saying is it's going to ebb and flow. It makes a lot of sense because as we come in and out of an open economy, we may be doing the same thing, ebbing and flowing. Let's get to some viewer questions now. First one goes to you, Dr. Saphier. Arlene W. has this question. Let's watch.
So if you get pneumonia shots, does that prevent COVID-19 from turning into pneumonia?
So that's an interesting question and one that I've heard a lot about. And the Pneumovac that she's discussing, that vaccine that people get to prevent certain types of pneumonia, is actually for a bacterial pneumonia, which is very different than the pneumonia seen in COVID-19 patients. However, one thing that we should know, when people get the flu, they can also have on top of the flu that bacterial pneumonia. Some patients with COVID-19 can also get that bacterial pneumonia. However, that vaccine itself is not going to prevent the pneumonia that is directly associated with COVID-19, that ARDS, or acute respiratory distress syndrome, that you've been hearing so much about. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have got it because, whether you get bacterial pneumonia or pneumonia from COVID-19, both of them can be very bad for you.
Janine B. asks this question. Several vaccines are in the making. In the end, will only one emerge as the gold standard, or will there be several variations of a COVID-19 vaccine? Dr. Hotez.
So that's a great question, and I think there will be multiple vaccines, actually. So hopefully maybe ours might be one of them, but the idea is there's a whole array of vaccines now moving into clinical trials, each using different technologies. There might be a dozen or even more vaccines tested. And ultimately, we might find out that certain vaccines have different uses. One vaccine might be better for older individuals. One might be better for healthcare workers or younger adults. So I would anticipate that it's not just a vaccine. We're going to be seeing, maybe 3 or 4 vaccines by the end of this.
Appreciate the expertise of both doctors on deck today. Thank you very much. We've had a very busy hour learning a lot of new details about social distancing and reopening of the economy. So we will continue to watch those stories right here on Fox. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll have the daily brief.
Application yet. So it's been very difficult, very frustrating.
So obviously you want to take advantage of this, and now you're hearing, I don't know if you did, in this prior report, the money's already quickly running out. They might have to wait for that extra $250 billion. You could be out of luck.
I'm hoping that's not the case, because I have, like I said, my workers are my family and my business. I don't know how, without the extra personal injection to this business, how it would even overcome when we reopen, because things are going to change. I saw your piece with Tapper. And I thought that was amazing. He's right. The business is going to change, and we have to be prepared for it.
And how would you prepare for that, Joe? Because almost everyone tells you you're the expert. I'm not, but I mean, you can crowd a lot of people in your place. It's very, very popular, and you're a big reason why. But if all of a sudden they say, all right, this distancing continues, how are you going to do that in your place?
Well, luckily we're a locally driven joint. The locals have come together. I did a GoFundMe page for them, and people are pre-tipping my bartenders right now to give them a little extra cash to get through this. We will prevail. It's just a matter of getting the locals back in and taking the proper precautions to keep everybody safe. We're just going to have to we'll have to endure it and get through it.
I wonder, Joe, I mean, we've talked about this here about Americans who might be reluctant to sort of go back out in crowded situations, either in places like yours, certainly in stadiums and sporting events, movie theaters and the like. That'll be a different world, to put it mildly, and maybe for a while. Does that worry you?
It does. We've always been a local, popular local place. We have our pool teams, we have our shuffleboard teams, we have our dart teams. We have people that come out just to see each other who will take the precaution. It's almost like we have an extended family past our staff. So I think everybody will be watching out for each other and, making it safe for everyone. And I just hope for my purposes, I'm hopeful that I can get a little bit of assistance from the SBA. I'm hoping time doesn't run out.
Governor Murphy in your state of New Jersey has been hinting that things won't get back to normal anytime soon. There's a distinct possibility, no matter what the president recommends, Joe, that states like New York and New Jersey and New York, where they've just, are starting a forced policy of everyone wearing masks, that could be delayed. And the eye would be the nation gets back to business, but not New Jersey, not New York. What do you think of that?
Well, honestly, what I was considering doing prior, when they do allow us to reopen, is taking the good with the bad. Maybe we do alehouse masks at entrance. You have to have a mask when you come in, and doing some type of branding product that way to get people to come out and say, hey, look, we're safe. We're a heavily trafficked bar for locals and puppies and dogs. So maybe we kind of, I don't want to say capitalize on it, but give people a reason. Hey, look, you have to be safe when you come in here. And we're taking every precaution to keep it safe for you, doing all the bleaching and cleaning and, Purell stations at the entrance and exit. So we're going to try and do the best we can. I mean, this is an unknown for everybody, I believe.
All right. Well, good luck, Joe. You have a big heart in trying to look after your people and take care of them, but it's hard to do. He's the owner of the Ale House, also mortgage banking. So you've got a double whammy there to deal with, but he's generous, maybe to a fault here, but hopefully things work out. By the way, as he and I were chatting here, we are learning a little bit of that committee, that advisory committee that's going to help the president decide when and how exactly to reopen things. Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame and Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook are joining the committee. It's a who's who. That includes the former FDA commissioner, Bernie Marcus, who you heard from. A lot of people. It's Charles Payne right now. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Neil, thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charles Payne. This is Making Money, and breaking at this moment, stocks are swinging back into the red today as we get confirmation of what happens when the economic off switch is abruptly hit. Retail sales, Empire State Manufacturing, home builder confidence, industrial production, you name it, all confirming the pain. But how might a recovery look? We're going to go over the potential types of recovery ahead and how your portfolio should be positioned. Also, President Trump freezing funding to the WHO over its handling of the coronavirus pandemic is now the right time. I want to get reaction from Texas Congressman Roger Williams. And as the nation prepares to unwind the lockdown, what do we need to know to prevent a second wave? All that and so much more on Making Money. All right, folks, on the market, I think holding up pretty nicely, considering everything. It's been making a stand all session long. And just here over the last hour or so, actually trying to rally on news that Germany now will, in fact, be coming back online beginning April 20th. But even before this morning's spate of earnings misses and terrible economic data, the market was indicating that it would be a tough session. All night long, the market was down. Now, you could argue that the session was to the downside, really that this is overdue. I mean, consider that the S&P 500 has rallied 30% from March 23rd, that intraday low of 2191 to yesterday's intraday high of 2851. The question now, of course, is how much risk is there to the downside? As Wall Street has largely changed its tune on the need for these major indices to retest the lows. I want to bring in my panel of market pros to talk about the potential reopening of the economy and how all of this data informs their decisions. Let's begin first and foremost with my friend Gary Kaltbaum of Kaltbaum Capital Management. We're also going to have Rebecca Walzer in as well. She is from Walzer Wealth Management. Gary, first up, so we've got the Bank of America. They come out with this survey of these global money managers, and these folks, they handle a lot of money. Now, we've seen a surge of cash, but here's what we're not seeing is, and the question, of course, is what kind of recovery do we get? Some think there will be a V type, a U type. There's the W type. There's the L type. The V, of course, is short term. U type would be a gradual return of the economic growth. The W, a double dip recession. And the worst would be an L shape. That would be a severe long-term recession. I want your opinion on what you anticipate, and more importantly, how someone should potentially set up their portfolio.
Yeah, a lot of letters being thrown around, Charles. Look, I believe that we're going to have a real nice pop off the get-go. That's just normal. But I think after that human nature by consumers and business, there's going to be a heck of a lot of reassessment based on demand, which will basically lead into how much capacity. If you think about airlines, they're not coming back at full capacity. They're going to come back at a certain level and see what kind of demand is there. I'm also thinking about the health part of it. You know, we got Disney World here in Orlando. We have these parades at night where hundreds, if not thousands of people are standing shoulder to shoulder with kids sneezing and coughing next to you. I wonder how much Disney's going to do of that. So I just think there's a lot of ifs going forward. So I think we get a real good pop, and then we get reassessment after reassessment. Longer term, I'm not worried. I think we'll get back to the norms. I just don't know how long term it is. And I think the people calling for a real sharp V shape, just straight back up, I think they're going to have a couple things handed to them first before we get there.
Now, Rebecca, to be clear, according to the survey, 52%, the majority, see a U-shaped recovery. So a gradual recovery where we make something of a bottom, to Gary's point, and we slowly work our way back up. I'm not sure what you see, but tell us what you think may happen, and more importantly, how your portfolio is positioned for it.
Yeah, that's a great question, Charles. So I know you want me to put a V or a U on it, but I want to say it's a hybrid, right? We haven't seen this before. So I do see that. I don't know that we're actually at the bottom yet. I do see, and I won't call it a double dip. I don't think that's what it is. But technically, if you want to be honest, by the time the financials and earnings season kicks in, and we really see the depth of the impact, like we saw starting with the financials this week, I think we are going to see potentially some more downward pressure. So I'm not necessarily saying that we've seen the worst of this yet. And I think you have to see the worst of it in order to get a V recovery, right? So that's where I don't see us there yet. But if we do see some more downward pressure, I do see some more downward pressure, Charles. When the financials hit in, when earnings season hits in.
So then how would you position your portfolio for this, Rebecca?
Say that again, Charles. Sorry. Never talked to you.
How are you positioning your portfolio for this?
I mean, unfortunately, right now, we're definitely more in a cash position than we would normally like to be in. You know, we definitely don't see that we're at the full bottom yet.
Okay.
This is great information on Germany. We need a world leader to step up and say, let's get back to normal. So that's awesome news, very encouraging. But the United States needs to do it. The United States needs to let the economy start to lead, and not all of this medical science that has been completely wrong and totally overblown. And we've basically committed economic suicide, and it's going to take some time to recover. But I do see, once we start to reopen and once people know they can go out and not die, then, you know, some kind of medical protocol like Gary was just talking about, then yes, I do see us actually recovering. And I think it's going to be a fast recovery. I'm not going to get back to our highs. But that, I agree with Gary. We're not going to just pop back up to 29,000
We've got some medical experts coming up later in the show to talk about that part of coming back. I do want to bring in now, though, Courtney Dominguez, Payne Capital Senior Wealth Advisor. I'm not affiliated with the Payne Group. Courtney, again, you know, I thought it was interesting because you have a variety of ways that this economy could come back. You know, of course, the best will be a V-shaped recovery. Most people are discounting that. Most of these professional money managers are saying a U-shape. In other words, a gradual return. I want to get your idea of how we come back, but more importantly, people are watching this to say, how should their portfolios be positioned? Because I think portfolios are going to look a lot different in the future than they did in January and February.
Very much so. And I think we just really need to look at this and understand that we are getting a lot of bad data coming out. And I know we've kind of alluded to that. There will be some negative news, but we need to separate the fact that there's going to be news showing how the economy is doing and how the stock markets are doing. The stock markets have already discounted most of that information. And so we want to make sure that we're taking advantage of these things because the markets are not going to wait for clarity in the data to happen. They are going to bounce a lot sooner.
Right.
The question is whether that's already happened, but I think there are a lot of optimistic signs. They're not reacting quite as much to every single data point. Actually, I see that as a really positive sign that we're just making sure everyone has a position to just take advantage of these dips as they happen. And you don't want to wait too long for maybe there's another happen. Sorry, go ahead.
And to that point, one of the big economic reports out today was retail sales off 8.7%. Now, that was slightly worse than consensus, although I got to tell you, folks, there were some estimates out there for it to be off as much as 15%. By the way, it wasn't a complete disaster. There were some bright spots: healthcare, building materials, general merchandise. In fact, the so-called control group, which goes into the GDP, was up 1.7%. So I want to, again, talk about maybe investment takeaways. Gary, I'll come back to you. I like the retail sales report. It has informed me on investment decisions in the past, although I thought Home Depot, for instance, would be better on the idea that building materials and garden supplies are up. Some firm knocked it, so it's not doing so well. These kind of notes, this kind of data, how does it work for you?
Well, first off, I thought 8% was a miracle based on, just going out and seeing so many things shut. So I think that's good news. Look, I think when all said and done, Home Depot and AutoZone, these type of places are going to do well. But I want to tell you, viewers, one thing that is sticking out, and I always talk about the sore thumbs, the small caps, the Russell 2000, has hardly even budged off the lows. So make sure if you're invested, you are in the larger cap liquid areas. And I think that's what the big institutional money's doing. They're realizing, just in case, stay with the big caps, because if you just take a picture of the Russell versus, let's say, the NASDAQ 100, it looks like two different worlds right now. So I'd be very careful that way. I'd stay out of the oils. I'd stay out of, ultimately, I think cruise lines and airlines will be okay, but I still don't see any life in them. And the airlines are down today, even though they got big bucks yesterday. It's going to be very tough, and longer term, I think we'll be okay. And you go with the big growth names, as I always do.
I agree. There's always a tendency, Rebecca, to buy the losers, assuming they're going to become winners. I think Gary's right. The winners are, to my mind, are revealing themselves to investors bright and clear, like neon lights. We don't have much time left in the segment, so I know you're a little bit more cautious toward the downside here. Is there a group that's standing out to you, though, that might be where you want to be overweighted?
I still think that airlines are a great buy right now. I know that they don't look like it, and that and even cruise lines. I know that sounds crazy, but I promise you the world will return to some level of normalcy, and cruise lines are going to adjust. They have beautiful cruises and beautiful ships, and I know people that are on cruises right now. It's actually crazy to think of. So, I think that you can maybe look at that and say it's an industry that will make a lot of profits and will recover.
All right, listen, I love contrarian thinking, and by the way, the Saudi investment fund loaded up on Carnival Cruise Line, so you might be right. So, Courtney, we'll spend more time with you next time. We're out of time right now, folks, but I do want to announce, I'm very thrilled to announce that next Thursday, I'm hosting another virtual town hall, America Works Together, right here, 2 p.m. So if you're an individual, small business owner, investor, whatever, we're going to have a panel of experts to help you navigate through these big, tough financial times. Plus, we're looking for your questions to ask Mark Cuban. So email your video questions to investedinYou@foxbusiness.com, or just send us a video to our Fox Business Facebook page. Well, President Trump hitting the World Health Organization where it hurts by halting funding. Remember, we're the largest donor. The WHO responds. Plus, millions of people are putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that we have medical treatment, that we have food. So how should these new American heroes be paid and rewarded? Some say hazard pay. If so, how much? We'll be right back.
Governor Sununu, good luck with all these decisions that you have to make. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
And so I mentioned this at the top. New York City is revising the number of coronavirus deaths, and the city is adding more than 4,000 fatalities to the count. Now, the health department is saying these were people who likely died from COVID-19 but never tested positive. David Lee Miller is following this from New York City to catch us up. David Lee?
That's right, Dana. New York City now says the likely death toll is approaching 11,000, and that's higher than most countries. The spike in fatalities, as you point out, is because the health department here is calculating not only the deaths that are confirmed, but presumed as well. Let me give you the breakdown right now. These numbers were updated just moments ago. 6,840 confirmed coronavirus deaths in New York City, 4,059 presumed. That's for a total of 10,899. Officials fear other deaths might be attributable to the virus because the healthcare system was overloaded. Statewide, Governor Andrew Cuomo says yesterday alone, 752 people died from the virus. The vast majority of those fatalities were in hospitals, but 45 took place in nursing homes. Recently released data from the state shows that about a quarter of all deaths from the virus since the outbreak began were in nursing homes or assisted living facilities. State officials, citing privacy concerns, have not identified by name where the deaths occurred. And moments ago, Governor Andrew Cuomo addressed that controversy.
I've said to them, err on the side of more disclosure. And that's what they've been doing. And that's what they're going to continue to do. But don't discount a person's right to privacy about the death of a loved one and your right to publicize that death because you want to. So it's a balance.
Nursing homes in other parts of the Northeast have also seen a very high rate of coronavirus-related deaths. About 12% of all fatalities in New Jersey, for example, were in some type of assisted care facility. And lastly, back here in New York State, just a short time ago, Governor Andrew Cuomo said he's going to issue an executive order requiring anyone who can social distance to wear a mask when in public. And on the state of the economy, the governor says he's working on some type of a phased-in plan that will be gradual, with the number one priority, he says, being the public's health. Dana.
All right, David Lee Miller, thank you. We got a big show ahead for you. President Obama's 2012 campaign manager reacts to the latest 2020 news, and there's a lot of it. Plus, we are joined by Florida Congressman Michael Waltz, and then actor Dennis Quaid.
Veteran.
Business delivers the